Good afternoon. Please stand for the posting of colors by Boy Scout Troop 175, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wendy Max-Studis, First Selectman of the town of Simsbury. It's my pleasure to be here and on the welcoming committee today, and want you to know how much it means to me to see all of you here today as we recognize Martin Luther King Day, a tradition here in Simsbury. We haven't done this in person since 2020, so it's truly a celebration to find us all here and healthy today. We are honored to have a great representation of our federal, state, and local leaders joining us, and I'd like to acknowledge all of them. Right now, we're expecting Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, who represents us at our nation's capital. We also have here our new state delegation. I'd like to welcome Senator Lisa Seminara, who represents us and our neighbors in the 8th District. Our new state rep, Melissa Osborne, who represents all of Simsbury. And I'd like to acknowledge our past state representative, John Hampton, who's here today. And our past first select woman, Lisa Hebner. I also welcome all, too many to mention, members of the Board of Finance, Board of Ed, and the many boards and commissions who volunteered their time today to help our community celebrate this day. Also give a big thank you to our town staff who participated and helped relocate this event to Eno Memorial Hall. I also want to just extend a special personal welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Camelia Lawrence. Thank you for giving up your time today with your family. Our MLK Day committee has put together a fabulous program. So with that, I yield my spot up here and say, let's get on with the celebration of Dr. King's message. Thank you.
Let us pray. God of heaven and earth, of all nations and all peoples, we give praise to you this day as we gather to remember and honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this, his birthday anniversary. We give you thanks for Dr. King's vision and his courageous and tireless mission to overcome the hatred and division of racism in our nation. In our prayer and remembrance here today, send forth your Spirit to stir anew in us a desire to further the mission of Dr. King in our communities and across the nation. Grant us resolve to stand up in the face of racism where it still exists. Grant us perseverance to overcome our hatred and rivalries. Grant us the gift of your unconditional love for all our brothers and sisters in the human family. We pray in faith. Amen.
Good afternoon and welcome to the annual MLK in Simsbury celebration, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King's life and legacy. Thank you for being here today. We join the world in remembering MLK, but Simsbury makes special claim to him because of his time spent in Simsbury during the summers of 1944 and 1947. First and foremost, I wanted to thank the wonderful members of the MLK and Simsbury Celebration Committee who have worked so hard to put this special ceremony together. They are Sarah Batchelder, Angela Griffin, Lisa Hevner, Elaine Lang, Ika Scully, Rick Wagner, and Tara Willerup. Please give them a round of applause. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank our incredible partners without whose support this event would not have happened. The Town of Simsbury, the Simsbury Senior Center, Simsbury's Department of Public Works, the Simsbury Board of Education, the Simsbury Public Schools, Angela Griffin, the Director of Music and Performing Arts for the Simsbury Public Schools, and the Martin Luther King in Connecticut Memorial Committee, the Simsbury Free Library, and the Simsbury Historical Society. And we are thrilled to welcome this year's distinguished guests, our keynote speaker, Dr. Camelia Lawrence, and our readers, Lloyd Huey, Thomas Roy, and Elaine White. And thank you to Father Sledesky for joining us here today. Unfortunately, Rabbi Goldman is ill, so she won't be able to join us, so we send her our best wishes. And of course, thank you to members of Boy Scout Troop 175. Last but not least, our amazing musicians, both the Simsbury High School Gospel Choir and the Gospel Band under the direction of Rebecca Saltzman. Dr. Martin Luther King was on this earth for just 39 years, but the ideals that guided his life of conscience and purpose are eternal. Honoring him requires the commitment of every one of us. There's still a need for every American to help hasten the day when his vision is made real in every community, when that truly matters is not the color of a person's skin, but the content of their character. Because of MLK's hopeful vision and moral imagination, barricades began to fall and bigotry began to fade. New doors of opportunity swung open for generations. Yes, laws changed, but hearts and minds changed as well. It is right for us to celebrate today Dr. King's dream and his vision of unity, and yet it is so important on this day to remind ourselves that such progress did not come easily, that Dr. King's faith was hard-won, that it sprung out of harsh reality and some bitter disappointments. It is right for us to celebrate Dr. King's marvelous oratory, but it is worth remembering that progress did not come from words alone. Progress was hard. Progress was purchased through enduring the smack of billy clubs and the blast of fire hoses. It was bought with days in jail cells and nights of bomb threats. For every victory during the height of the civil rights movement, there were setbacks and there were defeats. There are multitudes of men and women whose names never appear in the history books. Those who marched and those who sang, those who sat in and those who stood firm, those who organized and those who mobilized. All those men and women who through countless acts of quiet heroism helped bring about changes a few thought were even possible. By the thousands, said Dr. King, faceless, anonymous, relentless young people, black and white, have taken our whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the formulation of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. To those men and women, to those foot soldiers for justice, know that our gratitude is yours as well. And we forget now, but during his life, Dr. King wasn't always considered a unifying figure. Even after rising to prominence, even after winning the Nobel Peace Prize, Dr. King was vilified by many, denounced as a rabble-rouser and an agitator, a communist and a radical. He was even attacked by his own people, by those who felt he was going too fast, or those who felt he was going too slow, by those who felt he shouldn't meddle in issues like the Vietnam War or the rights of union workers. We know from his own testimony the doubts and the pain that this caused him, and that the controversy that would swirl around his actions would last into the fateful day that he died. But in our hearts, Martin Luther King will stand for all time among others who fathered this nation and those who defended it, a black preacher with no official rank or title, who somehow gave voice to our deepest dreams and our most lasting ideals. A man who stirred our conscience and thereby helped make our union more perfect. Without Dr. King's glorious works, we might not even have the courage to come as far as we have. Look at the faces around you here today, and you see an America that is more fair and more free and more just than the one Dr. King addressed in his day. We are right to savor that slow but certain progress that's expressed itself in a million ways, large and small, across this nation every single day as people of all colors and creeds live together and work together and fight alongside one another and learn together and build together and love one another. Our work is not done, and so on this day in which we celebrate a man and a movement that did so much for this country, let us draw strength from earlier struggles. First and foremost, let us remember that change has never been quick. Change has never been simple or without controversy. Change depends on persistence. Change requires determination. And just as we draw strength from Dr. King's struggles, so we must draw inspiration from his constant insistence on the oneness of man, the belief in his words that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. It was that insistence, rooted in his Christian faith, that led him to tell a group of angry young protesters, "I love you as I love my own children," even as one threw a rock that glanced off his neck. It is precisely because Dr. King was a man of flesh and blood and not a figure of stone that he inspired his soul. His life, his story, tells us that change can come if you don't give up. He would not give up, no matter how long it took, because in the smallest hamlets and the darkest slums, he witnessed the highest reaches of the human spirit. Because in those moments when the struggle seemed most hopeless, he had seen men and women and children conquer their fear. Because he had seen hills and mountains made low, and rough places made plain, and the crooked places made straight, and God make a place out of no way. Dr. King was quintessentially American, because for all the hardships we've endured, for all our sometimes tragic history, ours is a story of optimism and achievement in constant striving that is unique upon this earth. And that is why the rest of the world still looks to us to lead. This is a country where ordinary people find in their hearts the courage to do extraordinary things, the courage to stand up in the face of the fiercest resistance and despair and say, this is wrong and this is right. And we will not settle for what the cynics tell us we have to accept. And we will reach again and again and again, no matter the odds, for what we know is possible. That is the conviction we must carry now in our hearts. As tough as times may be, I know we will overcome. I know that there are better days ahead. I know this because of the man towering over us today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today to celebrate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's Day with you and to share a reading from one of Dr. King's speeches. Now, at the height of the civil rights movement, Dr. King was awarded an honorary degree from Oberlin College. It was a degree in humane letters. His commencement address, "Remain awake through a revolution," was one that the class of 1965 would not soon forget. It would be his last formal address at Oberlin before his untimely death in 1968. Today it is my honor to share with you selections from this commencement address made by Dr. King at Oberlin College. Ladies and gentlemen, There is nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution. I'd like to suggest some of the things that we must do in order to remain awake and achieve the proper mental attitudes and responses that the new situation demands. First, I'd like to say that we are challenged to achieve a world perspective. Anyone who feels that we can live in isolation today, anyone who feels that we can live without being concerned about other individuals and other nations is sleeping through a revolution. The world in which we live is geographically one. The great challenge now is to make it one in terms of brotherhood. All I'm saying is simply this, that all mankind is tied together. All of life is interrelated, and we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is an interrelated structure of reality. We are challenged to work passionately and unrelentingly to get rid of racial injustice in all of its dimensions. Anyone who feels that our nation can survive half segregated and half integrated is sleeping through a revolution. The challenge before us today is to develop a coalition of conscience and get rid of this problem that has been one of the nagging and agonizing ills of our nation over the years. Racial injustice is still the Negro's burden and America's shame. We've made strides, to be sure. We have come a long, long way since the Negro was first brought to this nation as a slave in 1619. In the last decade, we have seen significant development. But I would be dishonest with you this morning if I gave you the impression that we have come to the point where the problem is almost solved. Let nobody give you the impression that the problem of racial injustice will work itself out. Let nobody give you the impression that only time will solve the problem. That is a myth. Somewhere we must come to see the human progress. Somewhere we must come to see that human progress never rolls on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. Without this hard work, time becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. So we must help time and realize that the time is always right to do right. Let us stand up. Let us be a concerned generation. Let us remain awake through a great revolution, and we will speed up the great day when the American dream will be a reality. We, in the final analysis, can gain consolation from the fact that at least we've made stride in our struggle for peace and in our struggle for justice. We still have a long, long way to go, but at least we've made a creative beginning. Thank you.
All right, everybody, put your hands together. Here we go. Gospel is participatory. Feel free to clap, stand up, sing along. This is the Simsbury High School Gospel Choir.
Welcome Miss Helen Walton up to the solo. Here we go.
Weren't they amazing? I don't know who on the committee didn't like me to put me behind them. They were just fantastic. Give another round of applause. Get back to their seats. The following is a passage from Beyond Vietnam, a speech delivered by Dr. King on April 4th, 1967, at Riverside Church in New York City. It's a passage which was valid back in 1967 as it is today. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with the lost opportunity. We still have a choice today: nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. We must move past indecision to action. We must find new ways to speak for peace and justice throughout the developing world, a world that is now on our doors. If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time reserved for those who possess power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight. Now let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter, but beautiful struggle for a new world. Shall we say the odds are too great? The struggle is too hard? Or will there be another message of longing, of hope, and solidarity with their yearnings, of commitment to their cause, whatever the cost may be? The choice is ours, and though we might prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history. And if we only make the right choice, we will be able to transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of peace. If we make the right choice, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our world into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. If we but make the right choice, we will be able to speed up the day all over America and all over the world when justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Thank you.
Our third reading is an excerpt from an article written by Dr. King for the January 1947 edition of the Maroon Tiger, the Morehouse College student newspaper. Later that year, Dr. King would return to Simsbury for his second summer of work in the tobacco fields. It's called The Purpose of Education. It seems to me that education has a twofold function to perform in the life of man and in society. The one is utility, and the other is culture. Education must enable a man to become more efficient, to achieve with increasing facility the legitimate goals of his life. Education must also train one for quick, resolute, and effective thinking. To think incisively and to think for oneself is very difficult. We are prone to let our mental life become invaded by legions of half-truths, prejudices, and propaganda. Even the press, the classroom, the platform, and the pulpit, in many instances, do not give us objective and unbiased truths. To save man from the morass of propaganda, in my opinion, is one of the chief aims of education. Education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. The function of education, therefore, is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. but education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but with no morals. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The complete education gives one not only the power of concentration, but worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to say thank you, Johanna Hayes, for coming. We're really honored to have you with us today, and all of our elected officials. Dr. Camelia Lawrence, MD, FACS, is a board-certified surgeon specializing in benign and malignant breast disease. She earned her bachelor's degree in biology from Fordham University and her medical degree from the University of Rochester School of Medicine. She completed her residency at New York Medical College. She then entered her fellowship training at the John Wayne Cancer Institute, Santa Monica, in breast surgical oncology. She currently serves as the Director of Breast Surgery for the Hospital of Central Connecticut and Midstate Medical Center, tasked with the responsibility of further developing their breast programs. She serves as Assistant Professor of Surgery at UConn School of Medicine, University of Connecticut, where she works with medical students and surgical residents, nurturing her personal interest in teaching and education of the future generation. She has co-authored a book chapter entitled Benign Breast Diseases, published in Barrick and Novak's Gynecology 2012, and served as a peer reviewer for journals. She has received numerous awards for her commitment to service, including the Dr. Kenneth Woodward Memorial Award, Rush Henrietta Rotaries Club, Dr. Edwin Robinson Humanitarian Award, and the Carrie Ann Smith Award. In 2015, she was chosen by the Urban League of Southern Connecticut to receive the Woman of Power Award during the Women's Empowerment Summit. She was awarded the 2017 Doctor of Distinction Award for Fairfield County, the American Cancer Society Award for Women Leading the Way to Wellness, and the Susan G. Komen inaugural More Than Pink honor for her commitment to Breast Care Center. Most recently, she received the Hartford Business Journal Healthcare Hero Award 2021. I just want to give that a round of applause right here. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it's wonderful. Camelia believes in the importance of service and volunteers her services locally through numerous organizations. She serves on the board of directors for Women's Physicians of Fairfield County, Connecticut DPH Breast Medical Advisory Board, and the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain. She is the incoming president of the Fairfield Medical Association. Dr. Lawrence's research interests span a wide variety of topics related to breast health, including outcomes research focusing on health disparities in breast cancer. She has traveled to South Africa as a delegate for the United States for the annual AORTIC conference focusing on cancer in Africa, bridging science and humanity. Distinguished guests and audience members, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Camelia Lawrence.
The title of my talk today is Fostering the Dream in Challenging Times. I am honored to be here with all of you today and to share some of my thoughts and reflection on Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. and why we celebrate his life. And in addition to the honor, I am also humbled to be in your presence. First, let me thank Ms. Angela Griffin for the invitation to join you at this important and momentous occasion. My name is Dr. Camelia Lawrence. I am a surgeon by profession. I help women from all walks of life in their fight against breast cancer. I currently serve as a director for breast surgery with Hartford Healthcare at the Hospital of Central Connecticut and Midstate Medical Center. Arguably, my most challenging and fulfilling job is that of a mother. To demonstrate how courageous I am, I brought my two toughest critics. With me today is my 7-year-old son, Nathan, and my 9-year-old daughter, Ashley. They will, I assure you, provide me with a full critique of my performance today during our car ride back to Fairfield County. A little bit about myself. I'm a graduate of Fordham University in the Bronx through the Higher Educational Opportunity Program. The HEOP program at Fordham was designed to help with the enrollment and matriculation of students with scholastic aptitude from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. The program had similar objectives to the summer tuition assistance program that brought Dr. King to Simsbury in the 1940s. Upon graduation, I entered the New York City public school system as an 8th grade health and science teacher. Are there any teachers in the audience today? God bless you. Our society is forever indebted to you, and we can never compensate you enough for all that you do. I often say that teaching middle school students drove me into a career in medicine. It's a challenging profession, yet so rewarding. I later attended medical school at University of Rochester School of Medicine, followed by a surgical oncology training at the John Wayne Cancer Institute in Santa Monica, California. There's a reason I am sharing this personal information with you, and it's not to bore you or boast about my academic excellence. See, I am an example of the American dream coming to life. I have very humble beginnings. I am the first in my family to graduate college, and I am the first physician in my family. My dream became a reality because I am standing on the shoulders of giants like Dr. King, who paved the way for someone like myself to achieve such professional heights. I bring no particular achievement or accomplishment that qualifies me to adequately represent Dr. King, nor am I an authority on his teachings. So if you will allow me, what I will do is share with you some of my thoughts and observation as to why the life of this great man matters and what relevance he has for us today. For reasons I quite don't understand, since time immemorial, various classes, dare I say, racial groups of humanity, have had a need to elevate themselves at the expense of others. Dr. King fought to change that. I believe if Dr. King were here with us today, he would tell us to look no further than Genesis chapter 1. The Bible does not start off with the creation of a special or privileged race of people. When the first human was created, he simply is called Adam, which is Hebrew for mankind, humankind. Adam and Eve are not Hebrews or Egyptians. They're neither white nor black. Their own particular ethnicity is not even mentioned, for the Bible seems to stress that they are the mother and father of all peoples of all ethnicities. Adam and Eve are presented as non-ethnic, non-national, because they represent all people of all ethnicities. Dr. King came from a comfortable middle-class family steeped in the tradition of the Southern Black ministry. Both his father and maternal grandfather were Baptist preachers. His parents were college educated, and Dr. King's father had succeeded his father-in-law as pastor of the prestigious Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., originally named Michael King Jr., was a Baptist minister and social activist who led the civil rights in the United States from the mid-1950s until his death by assassination in 1968. His leadership was fundamental to the movement's success in ending the legal segregation of African Americans in the South and other parts of the United States. King rose to national prominence as head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which promoted nonviolent tactics such as the massive March on Washington in 1963 to achieve civil rights. He organized and led marches for Blacks' right to vote, desegregation, labor laws, and other basic civil rights. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. I commend the residents of Simsbury and your town dignitaries for embracing and supporting the celebration of Martin Luther King Day. In preparation for this event, I learned that the Reverend Dr. King spent his summer as a young college student working on the tobacco farms here in Simsbury. In the 1940s, a group of Morehouse College students came up from Atlanta to work on tobacco farms in the Connecticut Farmington Valley as part of a tuition assistance program. This experience would influence his decision to become a minister and heightened his resentment for segregation. After arriving in June of 1944, King wrote a letter to his father stating, "On our way here, we saw some things I never anticipated to see. After we passed Washington, there was no discrimination at all. The white people here are very nice. We go to any place we want to and sit anywhere we want to. It was a world beyond the Jim Crow South, what that he knew, a far cry from the overt segregation and oppressive Jim Crow laws back home." In their downtime, the young Black farmhands could attend integrated dances and sit alongside the town's white residents at the movies, at church, and at the lunch counter at Dowd's drugstore and restaurants in nearby Hartford. I had never thought that any person of my race could eat anywhere, but we ate at one of the finest restaurants in Hartford, young Martin wrote to his mother from the farm. The dream of equality he would famously speak of years later was something he first glimpsed here in Simsbury, an experience that had helped reshape his worldview and prompted an inescapable urge to serve society, he would later write. Dr. King is relevant to us today in 2023 in Simsbury, Connecticut, and across our nation. He is an inspiration because he believed in peace even when faced with violence. He is an inspiration because he believed because of his resiliency and courage. He's an inspiration because of his self-control, wisdom, and persistence. Dr. King left us with many powerful lessons. The first lesson is dare to dream big. He showed the world to dream big when he declared, "I have a dream that one day little Black boys and girls will hold hands with little white boys and girls." So no matter where you are in your life journey, believe in your dreams. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams and work hard to make those dreams come true. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence, he wrote. It is not our position in the hierarchy that is of importance, but the painstaking effort to do well what uplifts others that matters. Transformational leaders can be found at every corner of society. They are the people that find meaning and purpose and a higher calling in their daily endeavors. Sacrifices will be made to get you to where you want to be. Dr. Martin Luther King came here as a college student to work to offset the cost of his education, and in the process, he found himself in his life's calling. Any job that pays your bills and allows you to maintain your autonomy and dignity is worth undertaking. I began my own personal journey in the workforce employed as a waitress at the local Woolworth restaurant. The second lesson is love people. Dr. Martin Luther King believed in the power of love. He taught people around him to love. He believed that hating people is stooping low and that no man or woman should ever fall prey to hate. Be less judgmental. Extend friendship to those who are racially, culturally, and economically diverse from you. He once said, "People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other." In a world today that is torn apart by a polarized view, we must dig deeper to find the common humanity and aspiration each of us hold. The third lesson is perseverance. He was incarcerated on different occasions, which never deterred him from fighting for human rights. In Dr. King's mind, just because you're going through a rough patch does not mean it's time for you to quit. Never quit was his message. I love this quote of his: "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." He reminds us that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Look around you. Where do you want to lend your voice towards a change for the better? Identify social issues that are unjust and be troubled enough to take action. Be a voice for the voiceless and the oppressed. Our world needs leaders who bring people together to create a more just, connected, and healthy world for future generations. The fourth lesson is invest in you. He believed in empowering the human mind through education. Ignorance was a dangerous condition in his world. He was quoted as saying, "Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." The fifth lesson, serve people. He exemplified a life of service. He believed that serving others is the epitome of greatness. He said everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. In a world that is full of disruption, there are so many areas where there is an opportunity to serve. If we fail to recall the lessons of our past, we are bound to make the same mistakes. The arduous commitment of men and women past, like Dr. King, must be brought to the forefront of our thoughts so that we can remember the principles we as a true great nation was built upon. Don't fear the future. Create it. Move purposefully towards missions that matter to create a better world for all. Like never before, we need to grow, cultivate, and promote leaders of character. We have the essential tools and intelligence to build a better, brighter, and stronger future for all. As he said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. So there you have it, 5 lessons from Dr. King. Dare to dream big, love, persevere, invest in you through education, and serve people. I imagine if he were alive today, he would want each of us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is my dream for our world? I imagined he would ask us to dream of workplaces, schools, churches, libraries, and a world that is more equal, just, free, and in service of all of life. I stand before you today as a woman of color and a surgeon. Whatever I have achieved is in no small part attributable to the life and death of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. We have come a long way since his death in 1968, the result of an assassin's bullet. And yet we have so much further to go, so much more to accomplish in the name of racial equality. Open and honest communication is the key to that journey into accomplishing that worthy goal of harmony, peace, and equality. This conversation today is a step in the right direction. And I thank you for having me. It has truly been my distinct honor to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Grossman, and I'm here today with Emma Pastor and Molly Payne. We are the leaders of the MLK and CT Memorial Committee.
At the conclusion of this celebration, we invite you all to visit the MLK Memorial across the street in front of the Simsbury Free Library, where light refreshments will be provided. We will also be giving tours of the memorial. Please feel free to ask any question to any committee member wearing a name tag.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am not Rabbi Rebecca Goldman, but I arrived late and all the numbers had been drawn, so I have to give you the benediction. But I'll just say really quickly, it's so great to be here. I'm Johanna Hayes, your congressperson for Simsbury. This event many times, and I can tell you I grew up in Connecticut my entire life, and the story of Dr. King's journey and his time here in Simsbury never gets old. I want to hear it over and over and over again. And I never imagined that on this day, as there's so many events going on around the district, which is why I was late. This is my 7th stop, I think. My husband said, I'm going to go with you to Simsbury. That's the one I like. I never imagined that on MLK Day, the place where I would want to land would be Simsbury. So I thank you for always giving me a soft place to land and for recognizing this day and forcing people from other communities to lean in, to engage, and to want to come back. So you guys do a tremendous job. You do a tremendous, tremendous job with this every year, and it is just confirmation of everything that I already know. I spoke at Taft School this morning on the purpose of education being twofold, building knowledge and character. One without the other does not work. I used to explain to my students that it takes the same amount of brain energy and research and scientific development and testing and faculty to build a nuclear bomb that it does to provide a cure for cancer. Those gifted minds have to decide what to do with them. And supporting and uplifting communities while they're making those, as you said, very intentional choices about what happens next is what I used to say to my students, how we separate the women from the girls. So with that, I will do my best to give the benediction, I guess. But just know that this is where I look forward to starting my year with renewed hope refreshed spirit, sound mind, collective just input, and just a full appreciation that here, every action that anyone takes is seen as social justice. Whether it's a smile, whether it's a memorial, whether it's cleaning up in the park or doing a fundraiser outside of the grocery store. Everything here is seen as improving the human condition in this community. And that's all Dr. King ever wanted. So thank you for giving that gift to me year after year after year. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to flow forth over the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Thank you.
This concludes our ceremony. I just want to thank you again all for coming, especially all our participants and performers. In closing, our gospel choir is going to lead us in a closing song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is also referred to as the Black National Anthem. And we ask that you march with us out the doors, across the street carefully, to the MLK in Simsbury Memorial to take a tour and to continue the celebration. Thank you so much.
Please stand and join us in the singing of Lift Every Voice and Sing.